Okay. Yeah, so I just wanted to share some of the things that are sort of guiding my thoughts on this. The first one is, it seems to me that any solution we come up with really can't involve adding a new API to the Open Service Broker API, mainly because any new operation we add would be optional at best, which means we need to make sure we work even when that operation is not there or supported. But also, we have to support existing brokers because they won't have that operation there. Um, and and no matter what we do, with any kind of pre-check operation or anything like that, we always have to deal with the situation that the broker could say no when we actually go to invoke the operation, right? Whether it's update or delete. And we have to be able to recover from that situation. So even if the pre-flight check said, yep, you can do it, for some reason the broker is always going to have the right to say no later on. And we have to be able to deal with that. And so in my mind, because of that basic fact, it guides me in saying, adding something like an operation or to some extent almost changing Open Service Broker in some way is almost not an option. And I was a little hesitant to say not changing Open Service Broker because I don't think that's necessarily true. We may be able to make some changes there. I just can't fathom a change significant enough that would ever not allow the broker saying no. And that's sort of like the first big undeniable truth in my head that I just cannot get past in my thought process around this. The other thing is, I don't see how we can ever allow Kubernetes to start the delete process on a resource for these scenarios, right? Because as everybody's said over and over, once you set that delete timestamp, it's done, right? And while some people have suggested, oh, well, just recreate the object, right? Because, that's almost a very inconsistent position to have, because they keep saying you can't undo a delete justifiably, but you can't undo a delete because people are watching that timestamp and may react to it, right? And so the notion that's of someone saying, oh, well, then just recreate the object because it's another object, with a new delete timestamp that's cleared, what's the big deal? Well, the actions taken by that first object being deleted because of that delete timestamp may be irreversible and not things you want to have happen, right? So when we create this secondary object, we have no ability or no guarantee that someone's going to watch that and say, oh, okay, well, I deleted something before, but now I'm going to recreate it because this object is now recreated, right? I can't fathom that we can ever guarantee that happening. So that's why, in my mind, any real solution to come up with this, and maybe we can't find a real one, but if we were to claim we found the right solution, it has to involve not setting delete timestamp on the Kubernetes resource because of the bubble of the rippling effect of that delete timestamp being set, and us not being able to guarantee that we can roll those back. So those are kind of things that are driving me in all these decisions. And it's not because I'm necessarily trying to be, take Open Service Broker's side over Kubernetes. It's more, I can't reconcile these basic facts in my head, or I can't change these basic assumptions in my head. So now you guys can let me know if you think I'm way off on this.
Yeah, I don't. So on the, let's say, I guess maybe going from last to first, or at least jumping right in on the last. I tend to agree. I don't think recreate is a viable scenario. I don't think that's, to me, that's not going to work.
Right.
I wouldn't even want to attempt it. Doug, you started with talking about backward compatibility, I think, and I agree. We can't. Obviously, the webhook stuff requires a change to the OSB API, and in order to get the new functionality, agreed that old brokers won't pick it up. You'd have to have a broker that was, we'd first have to get an extension into OSB API saying, okay, pre-check. Here's the validating pre-check webhooks. Mm-hmm. And the brokers would have to be revved, and they'd have to register the URL for it and that kind of thing. And then, I admit there are cases, there are definitely scenarios where you invoke even if you invoke a pre-check you may later fail when you're actually doing the actual deletion. In my mind, that scenario is somewhat limited and for a lot of the part can be worked around, and I guess I'm willing to put up with a resource that gets wedged and requires perhaps administrative assistance to deal with it. I think there can be follow-on work that would help with wedged problems. I know we probably don't disagree. I think, Doug, I've heard you say as much that you don't like the notion of an admin queue or something like that, but there may be other options we can take going down that path.
So let me poke on that for a sec, because I know you just mentioned the notion of an admin doing some sort of fix-up situation. I think Paul has mentioned the same thing as well. As you think about that, excuse me, as you think about that option, how does that reconcile in your head with the, excuse me, with the fact that we both agree that you probably don't want to allow the delete timestamp to be set? So, because to me that means, okay, if we don't want to allow the delete timestamp to be set, but you want to allow some sort of admin reconcile thing, in your mind, does the reconcile thing involve talking to the broker to reconcile it, or taking some action on the Kubernetes side? I'm not quite sure where the action would be taken in your mind.
Yeah, no, I think so. I'm still pretty much along the lines of, you say delete on the Kubernetes side and you're done with it. It's going to go away one way or another, and the admin action pretty much takes care of, the admin is responsible for ensuring that any Kubernetes resources are cleaned up, but he also, he's got the big hammer on the broker side, and he'll do whatever's necessary to clean up the broker side, or well, I guess that's it. Clean up the broker side. And so it's really saying that Kubernetes is still the source of truth, and that once you do the delete and it's not rejected by a webhook validation, the timestamp is set, and it's not going to be usable again.
Right. So yeah, that's something that I'm really struggling with, because what that kind of implies is two different things. One is we can add a pre-flight check type of operation, which I'm still very weary of, because existing brokers will not work. But also, you remove the ability for the broker to say no then, because even if he says no, you're going to say, well, no, we're going to go get a hammer and do it through some other path, and that's.
Can you elaborate on that one, Doug? I don't understand. So we invoke the webhook. He can say no at that point, right?
Oh yeah. If he supports the pre-flight check, mm-hmm. Definitely yes, yep. Yes. Yeah, but if he says yes to the pre-flight check, but then says no to the real operation,
right?
You're basically saying, well, nope, sorry, you already said yes. I'm not going to let you change your mind now.
Yep, correct.
Yeah, and those are both very large unknowns to me about whether those are acceptable, right? One is, in essence, saying to all existing brokers, you're not going to be able to play in this game, because that basically wipes out the entire current ecosystem, which is what we're trying to tap into here. And two, broker can't say no when it comes right down to it, on the real operation. And I think the first one is probably the more important one, which is the entire ecosystem that exists out there today is now shut out from this game.
Well, I guess I'm not. There's no two ways about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brokers need to be revved and pick up a change.
Yeah. That's the part that I don't know how to reconcile with, because I know we have a boatload of existing brokers that will not change it in any near future. So, okay. Anyway, I just want to make sure I got those things out there.
Sure. Yep.
I don't know, Morgan or anybody. How do you guys want to proceed if it's just the three of us?
I don't know if there's much more to discuss. I think we all hear each other's point of view.
Yeah, I
And
think we're wedged at this point.
yeah, right. And I guess that's why we do the vote on it, right?
Yeah, but if we do a vote, it'd be sure nice if we can narrow it down to just two choices.
Oh, I agree. I'm glad we made some progress yesterday narrowing it, but we still got, what do we have? Is it 4 choices?
I haven't looked recently. What are we down to?
That's why majority vote isn't the way to go.
But it's it's leave it as is today.
There's 5, I guess.
Oh, 5, really?
Ouch.
0, 1, 2, 5, 8.
0, 1, 2, 5, 8. So what is, okay, 8 I know.
So 1 and 2, did we had, am I wrong in thinking that we discussed combining those into one?
We had discussed combining 1 and 8. They're kind of different enough that, like, if I'm going to say at every single point, well, we could do this, or we could do that, or we could do this, or we could do that, or we could do this, or we could, like, they're not really the same anymore after sort of having gone through them, at least having gone through 1 a couple of times.
Yeah.
We've reached a point where it's like, it's not really compatible with 8 in many ways.
Okay.
If you want to give it another look, go ahead. But
not really.
Yeah, I did it yesterday, and I'm like, I made a list of like all the differences, and I was like, well, these are different.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah.
And if the main difference is like, what are we calling the flag for 1 versus 8? Like, sure, they're the same, but that's not really, we're using it differently. It's now a counter instead of a flag. It's got different semantics based on what do you do to it. So they're not really the same thing anymore in my mind.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's interesting, the difference between 1 and 2, it's sad because they are really so close, except for one huge high order bit, which is, does the user kick it off, or do we automatically do it under the covers? Am I right, Morgan?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, I think 2 is more transparent. I mean, unless you go and you look at all of the details of the fields, nobody's going to notice that. That's why I don't understand the kickback against it. But fine.
Yeah. See, what's interesting to me is in my mind, the real issue with 2 isn't the lack of transparency or people watching things they shouldn't be doing or something like that. Because I agree with you. I don't think most people watch resources that closely, and because we own these resources, we could be very blunt and say, don't watch. Don't expect normal things to happen. Things are slightly different here, but in the end, it's all the same. To me, the real problem with 2 is lack of CRD support.
Yes, I agree.
Have you given any thought to, or have you come up with any brilliant idea for any way to possibly do this in CRDs, or is it pretty much, as of right now, the way they're written, it's not possible?
I haven't researched enough to know what they're going to plan. Since this is an API server and I'm doing edits in the API server code, I don't see any way for us to, the API server, the CRD server that's provided by Core is the CRD server that's provided by Core. There's no opportunity for me to make tweaks to it. So it is what you're given. You're given that. I don't see I've not heard of any kind of like custom extension points or plugins or something that we could. So this, CRD is really nukes this, and at that point, I would suggest the split up thing, the indirected thing. But
wait, which one is that? 8?
4.
4.
That works with both things, but it's got a really terrible API.
Do CRDs support webhooks, admission controllers, all that other stuff?
I believe so. I mean, it's an object. It goes through. Well, I mean, an admission controller has to be compiled in. A webhook intercepts whatever it intercepts. So as long as you tell the thing to send all of the particular kinds of objects to the webhook, I would think it would.
Right. And I think you can register those at runtime, can't you?
Yeah, that's right. So it's basically string matching.
Oh, right. Man. So see, that kind of sucks, right? Because if we had the ability to modify the HTTP verb during one of those mutating webhooks, we'd be able to support CRDs and API server. That sucks. Have you broached that idea with the API server guys at all, Morgan?
I don't recall.
I'm wondering if it'd be worthwhile to ask them or ask a couple people about that, whether it's even possible. Because I still don't understand what the difference is between a mutating webhook that completely replaces the entire HTTP body, which is perfectly allowable, versus changing the HTTP verb. Especially when a delete is changing the verb under the covers. It just doesn't do it through a webhook.
I lack the emotional or logical arguments to convince anyone. I don't, like, there's two ways, I'm just saying, there's two ways you can go about it. You can say A equals B equals C, therefore D, and like that's a logical argument, and you can say, well, this makes me feel bad, and none of them work.
Yeah.
I don't
like
know what to do.
That's a great way to phrase it. Okay. I'm just wondering whether we made a mistake in discussing this amongst ourselves too much, in the sense that there are times when we make assumptions about what can and cannot change. And I know, for example, you and I, Morgan, had talks with what was that guy, that other Red Hat guy that we talked to when I was in the car coming back from Virginia. Was it David? No, it wasn't David Eads. Or was it?
I've never talked to him.
No, no, you and I were on a call with somebody, and he said, given all the choices of the least bad option.
Smith.
Yeah, that was it. Dan Smith. Yeah. I know we talked to him, but I'm wondering whether we should have had more conversations with the API server guys to really push them a little more to see what's available in terms of possible changes, especially since, to me, CRDs are so new, right? It seems unrealistic to think that they're never going to change in terms of extensibility points and features.
I agree, but these people like to throw around the words never and never.
Yeah. Okay, never mind. I'm just sort of rambling at this point.
Okay, well, I can stop this. I'm not sure there's great.
I'd say one of the changes that we could still make on Monday or between now and Monday is potentially to drop a couple of these choices if we wanted to try to make sure that we have a couple of succinct choices to vote from on next week.
I'd like to,
but,
yeah.
But I don't know I don't know if that makes sense, but I guess we ought to just make sure that if we got 4 options here, that there are 4 owners that are willing to staunchly support that choice, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, there's 3 implemented ones, and I own 2 of them. If not 3 of them. I mean, yeah, if it comes down to majority vote, obviously I have to choose one thing. I don't particularly like that, but that's the reasoning. And yeah, I don't know. I think we're losing information by making everybody choose one.
Sure. And so then that shouldn't be a it shouldn't be an option we pursue then.
Just wish there was some way to brainstorm our way out of this.
Well, we've done that, and we've gotten. I'm concerned by sort of the shifting sands that I've been making decisions on. 6 months ago, it was go do this. Then it was no. The API is very important to us, and we must conform to the exact definition of the API. So I went and did something else. And now it's, well, this doesn't make me feel good. And I'm like, so I'm frustrated on that level. I don't know that we're making decisions based on facts and what we've previously said. versus we're just making decisions based on emotion. And I don't know how to solve the emotion problem.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree, but people suck.
Wow.
No, something happened last night that really put me in a bad mood, and I was up till like past 1 a.m, and when I finally managed to go to bed, my wife turns over, she looks at me and asks, why I was up so late. I said, "Oh, people suck." That's all it comes down to.
You know what? You know who's great?
Who's that?
Dogs. Dogs are
Oh,
great.
God, dogs are wonderful. Yes. The apple of my eye, sitting right over there right now looking at me.
Yeah, just got to remember that all the time. It can slip.
Yes. Okay. I guess that's it then, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
I think that's what we. I think we're done here for now.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Morgan, thanks for your work on this. I know I understand the frustration, but you should know that there's also appreciation for all the work you have put into the prototypes and this kind of thing. Paul said it as much, and I don't know if you've heard it, but there's definitely some appreciation there, and I realize it's frustrating.
Okay.
Yep, definitely agree. All right.
Have a good weekend.
Yeah, have a good weekend, guys.
You too.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.